And his opponent, the man who's a can, it is MCanning in the red.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched MCanning doing like GeoGuessr or anything like that?
No, I've heard of it. I tried doing GeoGuessr with Hearthstone, and yeah, I was made aware that MCanning does it too.
Okay, yeah, it's fun. It is fun. You feel like you're on his team. You're like, yeah, I want us to win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he makes you feel like a part of the family when you're playing alongside him.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fun.
Got that energy. Good vibes with MCanning for sure. When I was doing GeoGuessr with my European friends, whenever a jungle would come up, they'd be like, okay, cuts. I'd be like, whoa. Whoa.
That's...
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that one alone there. There's no good place for me to take that.
Yeah, there isn't. All right. So, now that I've made the start of this broadcast a little bit awkward, let's get back into the game, I guess. There's a Reaper being made from the side of Vindicta, so nothing too special, too different, as we get the results from the B-Stream as Antis is up 1-0 against Nina. Not too surprising, a match that I was really looking forward to as well today. One of the more difficult choices for us.
I was... It was kind of a real 50-50 split on me, and by that I mean I wanted to 100% cover both games for sure, but unfortunately that's not how percentages work. And I'm still happy with the one we chose, but I would have been really excited to see Antis pull off an upset like he already has. And well, we are going to see this Reaper getting on in here. MCanning, oh, he gets the double shot, but it's going to get away anyways, so not a big deal.
Yep, and MCanning's gonna go out with his Adept right away, actually, with shaded for the Reaper, but it's shading back, so not really looking to apply any pressure on the other side of the map. There would be a bunker ready for it anyway, but yeah, I mean, Adept opener is pretty common on this map because there is a ramp as well, so other units like Stalkers or, well, just mainly Stalkers would kind of take a little bit too much damage or could get kind of ambushed by Marines up at top of the ramp, so the Adept is the more flexible unit for the Protoss to open up with and kind of gather information early on.
It's an important part, gathering information. We are going to be seeing, speaking of which, that early Hellion. It's the... Oh, no, actually, it's not the big game opener. I was going to say, if we see a couple Widow Mines and Widow Mine drop, it'll be kind of like that 2 Widow Mine drop into usually Raven and tank production and just play it out like there. But Vindicta going to throw down a tech lab. Whereas we're going to be seeing a couple of quick gateways out of MCanning with that blink before the robotics facility.
Yeah, the Reaper will get inside, and MCanning looking to potentially try and deny information by using his probes, but unable to as the Reaper takes a different route. And he will get fully scouted. So blink potential, or at least the Twilight Council should be revealed on the side of Vindicta. MCanning will take a quick third base here. And yeah, things will transpire as they would. Vindicta going now for a Raven, so looking perhaps further into the game, as well as tanks and additional barracks being added. Do you like this approach so far? Are you liking the Raven?
Yeah, Raven in PvT is unbelievably useful. Of course, you got those auto turrets for harass if you so choose. You can bring it along with the main army if they go Colossus and switch those Colossus off with the interference matrix, as well as the ability to anti-armor missile Cheeto Dust any heavy Chargelon army. It's got so much utility and it's such a powerful unit.
Cheeto Dust. I like that a lot better than Dorito Dust because I like Cheetos a lot better than Doritos.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm not actually sure which one I like better. Nice little blink takes out that Hellion as it was derping. It's really derping a lot. Honestly, I think Cheetos has some like better crunch, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Like especially like I like the crunchy Cheetos. Mm-hmm. Those are my favorites.
Oh, hells yeah. Yeah.
But Doritos have like a ton of great flavors, like Cool Ranch Doritos. That was my jam.
I hate the Cool Ranch Doritos. They smell so bad. But yeah, this might be another Terrible take on my part. I definitely collect hate when I say that as well. I feel like Cheetos are so much better though. Like especially the hot Cheetos, like the really red Cheetos, lime flavor. Yeah, I love that. That's my jam. Let's see. Vindicta is moving out with this Raven. There is going to be a Phoenix hallucinated to scout it though. And that means that MCanning's going to reposition his stalkers right away with a blink. And if Vindicta's not paying attention, he doesn't change trajectory right away. He's going to try and take shelter on the high ground and actually outmaneuvering MCanning there, or MCanning outmaneuvering himself with one of those preemptive blinks. So it looks like Vindicta will get away with that Raven, but at the same time, shut down on the side of MCanning, right? Like that Raven is in an awkward position. There is no recall for Terran. So there's a little damage that it can accomplish in the vicinity of time.
Yeah, now in one sense it's almost a good thing that it doesn't use its energy up, because he's going up against very quick disruptors out of MCanning, and the ability to interference matrix those could be a whole lot more valuable than the actual maybe auto turret damage that he gets on a mineral line that already has a shield battery at it. So, as I say that, he is going to move forward.
Yeah, I'm with you though. I of course he doesn't know that, so he's just gonna go for the auto turrets. But I think if he knew, he would be very likely keeping that energy as you suggest. So now at the top of the ramp, MCanning is gonna meet up with the army of Vindicta, who is gonna siege preemptively. MCanning with a disruptor shot from a very far position. They're not gonna land on anything. And Vindicta with a second auto turret, very close to the shield batteries this time around. But 4 probes have gone down, make it 5, 6, 7. Now on the gas, MCanning with a warping to try and answer that auto turret, but that just means it's giving the auto turret extra damage onto a Celo that would otherwise be perfectly healthy, because there wasn't really anything else for the turret to target at that point.
Yeah, I'm always bothered by that when like a player will like wait out 75% of an auto turret's duration, and then they're just like, okay, now I kill it. And you're like, no, you got that entirely wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, wow, these Zealots, they were like, no, my brothers. Trying to avenge, but it's not going to work out. I mean, that was 2 against an army, a few losses here, bleeding out from MCanning, who is now going to be under threat from this trademark Vindicta drops that were so deadly against Neeb, and MCanning with a lot of disruptors, but there is a breaking point for the amount of disruptors. Disruptors are the type of unit that will somewhat lose out on value as you get too many of them, right? Like an ideal, in my mind at least, an ideal number of disruptors is either the first few or up until you can have constant disruptor shots to threaten, to take positions, to siege positions with. A lot of people like getting more disruptors than that, but they can kind of become redundant at some point. And obviously, the first disruptor shot is always going to be the one that has the most potential, because that's when the most army is going to be present on the side of your opponent, right? So the more army there is on the other side, the more potential your disruptor has to do. And the first disruptor that you fire is presumably the best one that you feel like you have an opportunity to shoot. So, yeah, it's going to be decreasing rewards. And that's why MCanning's going to go into Colossus, but the first one gets picked off very, very quick.
Yeah, that was a great move right there from Vindicta, hitting, like you said, with that patented double-pronged aggression. He tried to target fire the disruptors with his tanks. Unfortunately, they did get picked off, so they were able to stay alive. Obviously fortunate for MCanning, but picking off the Colossus there is pretty bad. And this auto turret is continuing to get damage done. 12 kills on that Raven. That's a great bit of damage. And I think all of them are probes, considering the fact that it was initially locked out and almost maybe could have even been picked off originally by MCanning.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and I think most of them are probes. Of course, in a certain other sense, those are the least valuable possible units that he could be picking up in terms of cost, but it's going to be a hindrance moving on as far as the economy of MCanning is concerned, especially seeing as Vindicta's taking now a 4th base and MCanning's still stuck on 3. So MCanning's going to have to rely on amazing engagements here and maybe even a little bit of a slip up on the side of Vindicta, but instead it's Vindicta that's going to be getting into a very strong position potentially. No, the army of MCanning is still close enough that he will have to respect it. Blink forward kills one medevac on the retreat, so well done by MCanning. He's going to continue to chase this army away. One of the stims will already be spent. Another blink forward, this one a little bit more daring, and a perfect Widow Mine onto center mass of the Zealots will do a lot of damage to soften them up. The rest of them will get picked off as they chase by the army of Vindicta, and this DT also not doing what it wants to do. Not the greatest moments for MCanning.
Not so much in that. Looks like that Raven picked off another 5 probes before heading back home. Wow. And also, I want to point out there was a really neat scan that came out of Vindicta during the kind of outset, or well, I guess while he was retreating and kiting those zealots, he scanned to see where the rest of the army was, and if he could maybe turn the fight. If he could, you know, let's say MCanning didn't follow properly with everything, maybe he turns that fight, or maybe he just doesn't even turn around at all if the Colossus and Disruptors are too close together. Oh no, Vindicta, that's a huge mistake. Oh, and he gets blinked on, does lose a full meta back.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was alluding to when it came to Neeb, right? Like a lot of this type of drops kind of just dropped on Neeb. And if these drops had dropped there, we wouldn't be like, MCanning, why don't you have your Stalkers there? But MCanning does have his Stalkers there, right? And this time around, he is able to answer in turn to that kind of a drop play. So if he can continue to stay on top of that sort of play and can get a couple more medevacs worth of trouble for himself, then he will shorten the gap between himself and Vindicta, who seems to be happy just playing a more passive game, having reestablished kind of like his side of the map and just fortifying it with those sensor towers.
Nice playing forward there from MCanning. Keeps all his probes alive. Liberator wasn't in the greatest position, but, you know, still a good quick reaction time from MCanning, saving everything. Yeah, I love this from Vindicta. On Oxide, there's no reason for Terran not to, you know, drag the game out a little bit. Liberators become so powerful in the late game. Tanks become more powerful in the late game. If you can split the map, which Vindicta already has a head start on doing, you're better in the late game just with all those siege units. It's I like that Vindicta is just kind of, instead of trying to leverage his lead for a win, he's leveraging his lead for a much later win, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of like the philosophy of when you're ahead, get more ahead. I'm not sure that, like, I think personally he had enough of a lead. He still has enough of a lead that I think he could have pushed on the gas pedal. And instead of investing into this kind of defensive positions, he could have continued on with the aggression and been defensive by trading, by just having a greater economy, right? Like kind of playing like Sergi, but maybe that is just, yeah, that is just me liking the Zerg style a little bit too much. I mean, maybe he feels confident enough in his late game that he is comfortable letting MCanning kind of catch up, because this is how I see it, is MCanning is gonna close the gap now, right? Like there was a 20 supply lead, Vindicta's maxed. That means now MCanning's just gonna catch up. And at some point, they're gonna be 200-200 against 200-200, and then all of a sudden, at least your supply advantage has completely vanished. So that is something that I personally, in my games, I'm not a huge fan of. But again, maybe Vindicta feels a little bit more confident in the late game than his opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, like, looking at him yesterday, he was still doing a lot. He was still splitting very well. He was managing Neeb's army quite well. He is getting, I think things getting a little bit chaotic. He's picked off now quite a few probes for MCanning. Oh, and that damage is really starting to rack up in the main base. Meanwhile, though, this main army is trying to push in from MCanning. A lot of disruptors here. The Liberator count is decent, but it's not amazing yet, and they still only have their +1, which means Stalkers do not get 2-shotted by them. They still get 3-shotted.
Yeah, and I'm scratching my head a little bit, because why is MCanning out here right now, right? Like, he must feel like he is hitting a timing or something, but he is still supply behind. I mean, like, I feel like he should anticipate that he has been trailing behind this game, that he should be on the way to catching up, and maybe just look to reestablish some more bases, maybe just look to split the map, drag out the game, get maxed out, and then maybe consider moving out. Instead, he is the one out on the map when Vindicta has stated that he wants to be defending and so on. So now Vindicta finally ready to go on the aggression. I mean, this could backfire. It's a lot of medevacs to load up, but MCanning doesn't seem to be aware of it. So this could be a huge doom drop on the side of Vindicta onto the 3rd or 4th base of MCanning here, and things are about to get hectic.
Yeah, and with all these Liberators to support, it's going to be really difficult to dislodge this army.
Yeah.
We do see a scan coming in. Zealot run by getting set up for that base. We do see Disruptors coming in. Oh, going to clear out a ton of Vindicta's army. And that will allow MCanning to continue to push forward.
Yeah, and I mean, Vindicta using a lot of his units as well to try and defend, but it's not enough to dislodge MCanning, which means MCanning is getting trades where he maybe shouldn't, right? If Vindicta just abandons this base in the first place, then he doesn't trade all of that army, and he has that army to defend further advances of MCanning, and he still has his army on the other side of the map. But in trying to defend that army and in under-evaluating the strength of his opponent on that location, he just wasted a lot of Liberators effectively. So I mean, that location is going to have to be given up. And now both players are kind of in a situation where they're kind of even, where instead, again, it could just be Vindicta with this army here and having secured his other bases by not using, by not trying to secure that PF location. Difficult to blame him. It's a difficult decision, but we are where we are, and this is an awkward game now.
It really is, and he could have, as it is, I think he still holds the natural thanks to that Widow Mine actually in large part. But he could have like 7 or 8 Liberators at home. Instead, he has like 4. And it's a little bit more dangerous than it should be. That being said, I still really like Vindicta's position, and I think he will... where actually are the Stalkers of MCanning?
It seems like they got recalled, but everything seems to have gotten recalled to the natural base instead of the triangle third, or even this base on top of the army of Vindicta. So maybe a little bit of an oversight, or maybe it was just the Nexus that was primed to do the recall. So MCanning will kind of stabilize, and here's where it gets a little bit annoying for Vindicta, right? Because yeah, like the natural's not going to be super difficult to hold, and he does so with those Liberators, but he also lost his third to a Zealot run-by, and that Zealot run-by wasn't too hefty. So now if Vindicta can't close out the game soon, MCanning will continue to close out a gap, and if he ever closes that gap and starts getting ahead, it's gonna be very difficult for Vindicta to come back into the game. So he definitely has a strong position right now, but he has to capitalize on this timing.
And he is going to look to do so. Oh, great splits against those first Disruptors. Another one getting dodged pretty well. Last one, well, actually, they're all getting, you know, like 2 or 3 units. But that is MCanning running out of punches here. He doesn't have enough to actually, I think, stand up against the army. Liberator's going to siege on top of everything. Battery Overcharge helping out a lot. Hold the phone. This might be a massive overcommitment out of Vindicta.
Yeah, the Khan is actually going to hold and keep a lot of his army alive. So now Vindicta trying to re-establish the third. This is the main command center, mind you. If another command center falls for Vindicta, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. He still has the natural command center that he could float to his third, and he might choose to do so. MCanning trying to keep tabs on that third with the Dark Templar there. I love that move from him. And now Vindicta, I mean, secures this base, but that base doesn't even have the full mineral patches to mine from it. So it's still a very hectic, very wide open game.
Yeah, I thought that was going to go so much better for Vindicta than it did. But MCanning ended... Oh, the scan for the DT, but it already left. Oh, God, that's so annoying. Yeah, he, like... that battery overcharge in the cannon helped so much on the defense.
Yeah. And it was a great debate, too. Like, if you think about it, difficult to fault Vindicta for pushing on forward when he did. Because MCanning clearly did use all 4 of his Disruptor shots, right? It's not difficult to count to 4 when you have just the 4 Disruptor shots. So Vindicta's like, it's go time, but then the battery overcharge is kind of like the 4th or the 5th power peak that MCanning has to rely on. And now on the offense, I mean, there's not very many units on the side of Vindicta, but there's not very many units either for MCanning, and the SCVs are doing wonders. A 3 Zealot flank might be what this game comes down to. The Immortal under heavy fire, but not being targeted actually by the Liberator. So we'll survive to kill a few more Marauders. A couple of those Disruptors are evacuated, and all things said and done, 35 supply to 34 supply. MCanning with 30 workers. That means Vindicta has twice the army supply in 24 versus 12. So he wants to move across, but half of his army is actually medevacs. So I don't know. I don't freaking know.
This game is ridiculous. This game is amazing. We're having so many absolute just weird, crazy games on the A stream today. I feel blessed to be here. Fortunately for Vindicta, he did kill that Dark Shrine, which means he doesn't have to worry about DTs anymore, and he can just drop mules. That is a big deal, because he has 2 fresh bases that he's taken. I hope he realized... Okay, yeah, there we go. There's the mules. I was going to say, I hope he realizes that he's actually done this, because that would be a little bit unfortunate if he didn't. Man, I feel like Vindicta has to get something done, but like you said, he has so much of his army supply in medevacs. 10 of his army supply is medevacs.
Yeah, so he's unable to really push the issue, even though the numbers might look like they are favoring him. Now, Vindicta has finally relocated the command center from his natural base onto a different base now that's fully mining, and he also has the ability to use mules there too. But MCanning is encroaching onto this base with a full office army. He does have 1 Disruptor only, and he's going to spend it right away. This command center under heavy fire, actually, the Stalkers will blink on forward, but MCanning thinking better of it, thinking that Vindicta might be able to flank him should he overextend further into that pocket. So, Yeah, I mean, he does have the observer there. Could get EMP'd that observer kind of easily, so hopefully it doesn't get spotted if you're rooting for MCanning here. And yeah, the game will continue on. It's still a very wide open game.
Yeah, no kidding. What do you think about the decision to go for Colossus instead of an additional disruptor? Personally, I feel like a disruptor would be probably a little bit better here, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, the Marauder numbers definitely are good enough that they threaten the Colossus, but the Colossus is consistent DPS, whereas the Disruptor, once you use it and with these small numbers, it's kind of just done. And you want, like I was saying earlier, like right now, a magical number of Disruptors, if you want to put one to it, would be something like 4 or 5, where you can have those constant Disruptor shots, in my opinion. Just the one Disruptor shot here, for example, does nothing, right? Whereas the Colossus still has added utility throughout the fight. So if there was 2 Disruptors instead of 1 Colossus and 1 Disruptor, I feel like Vindicta right there and then can close in and pounce onto that army and just kill it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, on the other side, if there's a second Disruptor shot, and while Vindicta's trying to split, he like gets hit by a big Ruptor shot. It's a little bit more like all in, you know, like either it hits and he wins, or it doesn't. Both of them don't, and he loses. So
yeah,
I guess the Colossus is the more conservative, like safer decision.
For sure. I think that if he was desperate, if the army of his opponent was considerably larger, then also like Disruptors could start gaining value, right? Because if there is a breaking point where your Colossus is just not gonna cut it, then you best pray and Hail Mary for this. Whoa! That's a full medevac. I mean, that's like 1/4 of his supply, to be honest. Here come a goal! Huge! Disruptor shot actually lands, and Vindicta's forced to GG out. And with that, MCanning will close out this ridiculous first game.
Yeah, that was all kinds of nuts. That observer spotted the entire load up, the entire YOLO load up from Vindicta.
Yeah.
And MCanning just pounced on it. He did not hesitate. Lands that big Disruptor shot. Oh my, what an explosive way to end that game. That was fun.
Yeah, that was crazy. And again, when it comes like to small skirmishers like this, I feel like it's on you if the Disruptor shot hits you. But also one thing that I didn't mention, when there's ghosts in play, it's difficult also from the Terran side to split against those Disruptor shots. The ghosts are not nearly as mobile as Stimped Bio. So you know, like if there's enough ghosts in that army, maybe the Disruptor starts gaining value again. It's really a difficult dance. But I did like the decisions from MCanning and the composition in that weird kind of endgamey type reset post World War scenario that they were in.
Yeah, that was definitely like a very weird hard reset situation. And it's cool that we got to see that. That was a fun game, and the way that they played it out was very interesting and intriguing. Vindicta's going to be kicking himself, though, for that overcommitment into the cannon and shield battery, because I think before that point, he still had a really solid grasp on the game, despite trying to hold that third planetary.
I think so. I think the third planetary was a little bit of a blunder for sure. I mean, he definitely lost a lot of units, right? Like when you just don't have enough units to trade or to hold the location, and you get overwhelmed, then it's usually you're just not gonna trade effectively, right? Like it's like if you fight an army of 10 units with 5 of the same unit, it's not like you kill 5 and remove 5. It's more like you maybe kill 1, because it's just diminishing returns on that kind of numbers. But the painful point was for me not having those disruptors available to defend his third base, and that's a lot run by doing as much as it did. So I think that could have secured the game for Vindicta for sure. But yeah, he wasn't out of it by any means. Now we are on a different map, a more defensive map. But I'm sure chaos ensues steadfast as today is a blessed day. And in the bottom right-hand side of the map, as the blue Terran player, it is Vindicta.
And his opponent, spawning up in the top left with the comeback and the Ruptors, it is MCanning.
He is going to be sending out a early-ish probe scout, I suppose. Kind of normal, I guess. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Both Both those scouts are gonna say hello. They're not gonna get trapped against each other like we saw yesterday. And yeah, everything's chill.
Yeah, everything's pretty fine. Now I've got an important question for you. Continuing our earlier discussion, those Doritos where they roll them up into like a
Takis?
Yeah.
But Takis are good, but they don't taste like Doritos. In my opinion.
Well, there's Doritos made one that's like it's like that, and it's like lime and hot. It's like maybe
it's
hot
like,
lime.
Okay, it's their version of Takis then.
Yeah, it's really good.
I haven't tried them, so I can't really say. But if it's their version of Takis, I mean, I'm sure they're capable of imitating a product well. Just their own product. I guess Doritos is just not my favorite. Takis are good though. Takis are good.
I've never had Takis. I've only had the Doritos imitation Takis.
Yeah, I have yet to try it. I didn't even know they existed, so excited to try them at some point. This Reaper is excited to try its luck. Inside the main of MCanning, he will find a weakened probe, but the Adept will actually pop up in time, and the next probe that he tries to target goes right into the gas to shelter itself, himself, herself, and the Reaper will just be chased away.
Yeah, I don't think probes, they're not sentient, right? Like they don't feel like pain and stuff.
You're pretty sure you were gonna say I'm not sure? I don't know. That's a very deep question, my friend. What is sentience? I mean, could the minimum expressions of matter be sentient? I don't know. Could it go down to electrons? I don't know.
Oh, that's a good point. And at what point do we cross over from instinct to
from instinct?
From instinct to actual decision making?
That is a very big conversation. I mean, I think that it's mostly an arbitrary measure, but neurologists will argue otherwise. They think that there is a threshold in which like human beings are made. There's actually, not to plug myself, but I had a conversation with a neurologist about this exact topic. That's on my YouTube channel. But yeah, it lasts like an hour at least.
Oh, that actually sounds pretty intriguing.
Yeah,
I'm into that.
Yeah, and I mean, to summarize it, in the end, he kind of had to admit that it was an arbitrary measure of like when do we consider a decision, right? And he was saying that that human beings make decisions because they go through options, basically, whereas things like plants don't really go through options. But that's just an arbitrary measure of complexity from my perspective. Anyway, it's maybe too deep a topic for the start of this game.
I mean, I enjoy it, but I guess maybe we can talk about the video game a little bit.
Yeah.
Do like what they brought us here for, I guess. Mm-hmm. We have 2 probes getting picked off by the Reaper coming back in. Pretty nice. Third Nexus on the way. Looks like a very similar build from MCanning, whereas we got Blink Stalkers, we've got Cloak Banshees into pretty quick 3rd command center after that 1-1-1 out of Vindicta. So he's already gearing up for a longer game.
Yes, indeed. The Banshee is now headed out as well on the side of Vindicta, so we'll see if this cloak pays off. There is an observer in production for MCanning, but it may not be in position. In fact, the first observer is moving out, and the second one is rallied out of his base and from the natural base as well. So this Banshee could do a lot for sure. There's a second Banshee in production also. I'm not sure that Vindicta is looking to wait for the second one. There is no shield battery in the main base of MCanning. So yeah, this could spell disaster for him.
Yeah, this could be really, really rough very quickly. The thing is, he might have to recall his observers, but then he would have to warp in stalkers as well, and we don't know if he has a warp in available. Okay, there we go. He warps in at least 1 stalker. This should get a lot of damage done, and there's no energy for the recall at the. Oh man, why did Vindicta just go away?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. He must have thought that, sometimes you see the stalkers and you're like, well, those units look confident. So yeah, but at least at the natural base, he's going to find a huge opening here to continue to do damage. He's now up to 4 probe kills, so job well done by him. The Banshee in the main base now might have free reign as well to turn around if he identifies that the observer has been moved. It's a difficult set of decisions to make for MCanning.
Yeah, I feel like Vindicta missing out on a lot of opportunities for damage, but maybe he's okay with that. Maybe he's just like, you know what, I took my fast third command center, I don't want to lose these Banshees, and he's just going to find a little bit of free damage. He does pop back into the natural expansion. And did he pick off? Yeah, looks like he got an additional worker. And now, yeah, he'll get back into the main base. Okay, so he's he's going to find a whole lot more damage here. And he's keeping them very non-committal with how far he's sending them in. So I'm okay with this.
Yeah, so let's see what continues to happen. Yeah, if you're Vindicta, you've got to be raving about these Banshees. They're doing fantastic. And there is, of course, a driver inside of them, so they are making their own decisions by most people's standards. On the other side of the map, we have tanks, kind of just chilling, and yeah, nothing too crazy for Vindicta, right? Just kind of building up on the back of this beautiful harass.
Yeah, no kidding. He's got the faster 1-1 upgrades. His stim and combat shields are already done. He's looking good here. He even picks off a couple more workers. Does get deflected into natural, but these Banshees have more than paid for themselves and put Vindicta into a very, very strong position going into the mid game.
Yeah, Vindicta's ready to hit a follow-up timing, which I really like, right? Like last game, one of the things that I didn't like, he had built himself a lead in the early game, and then he didn't really exploit it. He dropped those sensor towers. This time around, no investment into sensor towers. Instead, he's going to keep up the pace, keep up the aggression. And while he could surely secure a fourth base and get himself in a good position to continue on with this game, I like that he's doing this. But hey, MCanning's going to pounce on him. Gets a medevac for his troubles right away. And that may not seem like a big deal, but there's only one medevac left after that.
Yeah, and that was a big stim that came in. Meanwhile, we have these Banshees getting back into the main base while it feels like Vindicta is always doing more than one thing at once. And that's it's a cool move. It does sometimes end up with him running into things, but it could also end up with him getting really great fights. These tanks in the bottom are going to get so much damage done. I love the positioning there. And Vindicta, I think he's just going to overwhelm MCanning right here, right now.
Yeah, it's certainly looking like it. I mean, those tanks not in the best position to kind of aid the bio. I feel like they could relocate a little bit closer, but instead it's going to be the Stalkers kind of overextending and overexposing themselves to kill a couple of those tanks. That might give Vindicta the opening at the front to kind of be like, okay, well, without those 5 Stalkers or so, whatever you blinked onto those tanks, I have more at the front. The problem continues to be the medevacs and the lack of energy. Now, two more medevacs joining the fray will be able to assist. With that, a Disruptor goes down. 2 more tanks still. A backbone for Vindicta, who doesn't really need to overextend or overchase this army. If MCanning runs away, I think if you're Vindicta, you just turn to the Nexus, but he's not going to have to. He's just going to kill everything, and with that will even up the series score 1-1.
Well, I think regardless, we all had the correct idea and that this was going to Game 3. No one could stop it. Destiny was always going to have these two going to Game 3. And I'm excited to see the conclusion. It was cool, by the way, at the end. You were very on point about those medevacs being super low. You could tell when that Disruptor was fired out, Vindicta really didn't want to stim there. You could tell he was so hesitant to. And then it got close enough, and he's like, okay, I gotta stim, or I'm gonna lose like 10, 12 supply. And he gets out of there, which is good. But it was neat to see that little micro decision where he's like, can I get away without stimming? That was a cool, tiny little microcosm of a moment that it got me it got me excited a little bit about Vindicta's thought process.
Yeah, most definitely. Vindicta making a lot of cool decisions in that game. You were just alluding to Destiny, so I guess that is you're teasing me too much with these ideas here, Steadfast. I am not about to get into any of it. We are gonna cast some StarCraft, and it's gonna be amazing.
Sounds good to me.
You're a tease.
What do you make of 2,000 atmospheres here on this final map? This is the map where I think Vindicta really pulled a rabbit out of his hat versus Neeb in that game too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it is a very wide open map. I think it will favor the style of Vindicta over the one of MCanning, because MCanning is kind of dead set a lot of the time on going for those disruptors. And this is the kind of map that's so wide open, there's so much space that you can exploit units like the disruptor if you're willing to play the multi-prong style that Vindicta was very well and very much willing to play against Neeb, right? It's such a wide open map. You can really spread your opponent thin, especially come the later stages of the game as they take their 4th or 5th. And so on and so forth. So we'll see if that is what ends up happening. We are loaded into the final game of the series. We all thought that it would come to this. And in the bottom left-hand side, it is the red Protoss player, MCanning.
And his opponent, spawning up in the top right, representing Alpha X, it is Vindicta.
Love it.
And what do you, we got a gas first. What do you think of this? We're going to see proxy Hellions, maybe? Proxy Starport?
Yeah, last time we saw this, we saw a proxy factory in the European portion. And then an attempt at maybe floating it, and we never know what would have happened. I mean, maybe it was intended to be proxy Hellions, given as that's what Marine Lord ended up doing on the low ground, at least just the one Hellion. So that's definitely an option. I mean, there's going to be a faster factory no matter what, whether it's proxied and whether it does what it does. I have no idea what that will be. I doubt it will be something passive. Like I was saying, like tanks make very little sense. Raven Rush makes little sense. Banshees could still be an option, but it's further down the line that these initial edges in terms of timings don't really do too much. So I would like to see something like a Hellion or a Widowmine drop, or, you know, proxy factory or something weird. It's going to be a factory at the main though.
Yeah, going to be a factory at the main. It does have the SCV moving out. I do like the concept of just weird in general. There are a lot of options going for that quick double gas as well. Now, if we take a look at his mining, is that going to be... Oh, look at that response with the quick zealot coming out of MCanning. So he's a little bit concerned about what Vindicta might be doing. Looks like, yeah, the mining of Vindicta, he does take at least one SCV off of each of those gases. So he's not going to go all in with this at the very least. He will expand.
Yes, indeed. So that is pretty cool on the side of things for Vindicta. Let's see, MCanning has already dropped his Nexus. It's almost nearly completed as well. So just a single Hellion though. What do you make of this? Like, is that what you were expecting when you saw gas first? Just single file Hellion, nothing else. There's no starport or anything like that for a follow-up. There's just a lot of banking of gas. It's just odd to me.
Yeah, no, I was really hoping to see like a quick reactor and something a little bit crazier. I was hoping to see a proxy starport, to be honest, like proxy starport Hellion drop. Or if not that, something maybe a quick armory for permacloak widow mines. I think that would have been pretty interesting too. And it looks like MCanning has the same fear because he's getting that quick robotics facility. So maybe this is just his goal. Maybe this is just the goal of Vindicta, is to get MCanning to kind of freak out, and then he comes in with just, you know, like a TVT opener with these Hellions and Reaper.
Yeah, maybe. And now the only thing that makes sense to me is a swap onto the Tech Lab from the starport and making a Raven, just because you will have the gas for that, but instead it's going to be a Cyclone. And I am further confused. I mean, I just don't see what the point of getting that earlier gas was. But yeah, I mean, more than likely I'm missing something. Vindicta had a really cool build against Neeb as well, something that we haven't seen before, that kind of got an earlier gas, or actually he went for a 3 racks opening that is usually aggressive, but instead he had kind of a weird ghost follow-up, right? So not discounting his ability to try and force something weird later down the line, but the later we talk, the more I'm wondering why not just drop a 3rd gas earlier and just develop your economy a little bit faster, get that natural base established a little bit faster, etc.
Yeah, he is going to poke at the front with these Hellions and Reapers. They're not going to get anything done, really. There's a shield battery. There's a good wall.
There's a Raven, I think.
MCanning's well ready to go. Okay, yeah, it will be a Raven. Yeah, he was floating a lot of gas for a fair bit of time there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to question Vindicta. Like, he's, you know, light years ahead of me, and probably, you know, most other people that play this game.
Yeah.
But it does. I do wonder what the objective was. Did he maybe change his game plan because he got scouted?
Yeah, that's
Who
possible
knows?
too, right? Yeah, maybe he was looking to do something else, and then maybe he was looking to do Hellions, and then sees the setup on the natural and thinks, okay, I'm not going to be able to do anything. Like, it's already kind of walled off at the natural MCanning, and maybe changes his plans. Or like you said, maybe he feels like he forced MCanning into a defensive enough position just by sheer measure of doing what he was doing, and MCanning catching wind of it. And switches it up and just says, okay, well, whatever, I'm gonna mine some extra gas, I'm gonna bank some extra gas, and I'm just gonna let you make the mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to being said about that. Like, just chill. Just like when something is kind of spotted, let my opponent make the mistake. Like you said, give them just enough rope to kind of hang themselves, I guess. A little bit morbid, but
I like it.
Now, are we going to see this Stalker actually get picked off?
Not
Nice.
before it kills at least the Hellion and the Reaper with the help of his friends. So yeah, the Stalker will go down, but it was kind of bait on the side of MCanning, right? He was like, yeah, I'm not moving my Stalker. Go ahead and stay around here. There could have been some reposition that Vindicta could have done, but the Stalker was also holding the Watchtower, so Vindicta couldn't catch wind of the other Stalkers coming or where they were coming from. Obviously, if you really think about it a little bit further, we're always gonna come from the I guess the southwest position, right? Because that's where MCanning's production is. So maybe Vindicta could have actually kited towards his own side of things while still damaging the Stalker or forcing him out of the Watchtower range at least. So that could have been nice. Maybe could have saved a couple of units there, but easier said than done for sure.
Yeah, I do want to point out that it's even just killing one Stalker of those 3 units is probably better than you expect to get in terms of their value, because Hellions, Reapers, they don't have a ton of value in the mid game.
No, fair enough.
It's better than nothing for sure. Not amazing, and it ends up being a pretty good pick off for MCanning in terms of like getting the actual units themselves.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, 1 Reaper, 1 Hellion for 1 Stalker. Yeah, it's gotta be about even, or maybe in favor of the Reapers, like yours, or maybe in favor of Vindicta, just because they're less useful units. But let's see what happens here. There is gonna be tanks siege, not really fully utilizing those rocks. Now they're gonna unsiege and pull a little bit closer to those. The rocks, of course, are gonna provide a little bit of extra area where it's gonna be difficult to circumvent, and if they can hug those rocks, it's gonna be even better. So Vindicta now beginning to hug those rocks. That will reduce the surface area of things like Zealots surrounding those tanks potentially, while still giving coverage for Bio potentially at the front. There's still a gap that could be filled by one of those tanks, but Vindicta feels like this is good enough, so gonna start poking forward.
Yeah, he does get force fielded a little bit, loses like 1 or 2 units. MCanning definitely looking to pick off more than that. He doesn't have Blink, and he doesn't have Charge either. I think we undersold how much MCanning respected this. His 3rd was very late. Like, his 3rd was extremely late, and his tech was very delayed, at least his Twilight Council. So, I don't know. I like Vindicta's position off of kind of just feigned aggression.
Yeah, MCanning has to be decisive. When he decides to go for this, he has to go for it, right? Like, now he sees this medevacs here. I wouldn't mind him collapsing onto this army when he is made aware of that, because otherwise he's gonna continue to bleed units, and now this army is continuing to be threatening, so MCanning will pull back for this army, but this will offer Vindicta an opening where he can actually continue to poke forward at the 3rd at the same time. The Colossus is what MCanning is gonna leave in defense at his natural base, and it looks like that'll be enough. Now MCanning choosing to be a little bit more decisive, but the problem is single file, where a lot of his units coming in and getting choked by his own SimCity. So Vindicta, not too bad trades at all, and that Colossus barely surviving.
Yeah, that was an MVP shield battery right there that just kept MCanning's defense from collapsing. But I love the decision to drop the interference matrix on the disruptor instead of the Colossus, saying you only have 1 Colossus. I'm just going to stand up. I'm going to man fight it, so to speak. And I just don't want that disruptor interrupting my DPS, and then I'll just go from there. And he takes a really great fight, and now he's going to move forward. MCanning checking the Watchtower with his entire army takes a big bloody nose right there.
Yeah, this is very scary for MCanning. I mean, this is like twice the amount of bio that was here prior, and MCanning has a smaller army than before. I don't think that there's any reason for Vindicta to actually break these rocks, but he feels like he has to or he wants to, maybe because he's respecting the AoE potential from... Well, the thing is, it's just one Disruptor and one Colossus, so I'm not entirely sure that he should, because now the tanks are a little bit more exposed as well. But hey, there's no Zealot, so maybe it ends up working out just fine. Vindicta's going to continue to poke on forward. Now is the next shield battery overcharge that he might want to be waiting for to recede, and at the same time kind of stimming units without medevacs on the other side, so that's a little bit risky. It will force MCanning to split his army, however, and this is the opening that Vindicta was maybe looking for. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, looks like MCanning does temporarily chase that back. He does get a DT into the main base. DT at the third as well, finding a decent bit of damage. However, there are missile turrets here. Oh, and the cleanup on the top left. Hold the phone. Vindicta losing a lot of forces right there. And now 12 SCVs have gone down. MCanning getting the turnaround that he was definitely looking for right there. Oh, that is really, really beautiful. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So well done by the Kandar to stabilize. Will also force Vindicta out of that very annoying position, though it's less annoying now. There isn't any rocks here there for the tanks, I feel like. Now the tank's looking on to a different location that could be equally annoying. There's a lot of locations here where the tanks can sit behind some of these areas that are unpathable terrain. And that can make it very difficult. That can make for very difficult corners to turn. But instead, the tanks are going to be sieged at the front rather than around the corner. Still, it doesn't matter because MCanning is not here to answer right away. And that means Vindicta will claim a huge win in killing that fourth base. And kind of pushing back MCanning as well, who has to recede with a 40 supply disadvantage. Vindicta can now siege the low ground here, and that's exactly what he's going to do with these tanks. Elevate the bio, and this is going to be a difficult attack to dislodge effectively or efficiently for MCanning.
That it will. He does force the liftoff into those medevacs. Unfortunately, didn't have any Blink Stalkers available to punish that, and now Vindicta, I think he might just have this here. Oh god, those zealots got evaporated as they tried to warp in.
Yeah, absolutely evaporated. The Khan is now going to try to do what looks like potentially his last stance, but every time he is hesitant about it, he is just bleeding out units, and that seems to have been a little bit of the theme of this game, right? Like kind of overextending. Nice disruptor shot there, but kind of overextending into tank lines with 1-2 units and kind of just bleeding them out throughout the entire game. Instead of trying to just be like decisive at one point, I mean, like, I'm gonna crush your army or I'm gonna lose the game. But I mean, when you're indecisive, you're just giving yourself a greater disadvantage moving on further into the game, and that disadvantage kind of continues.